All right, this is Brent Porcio, TopVelocity.net. I'm going to do a throwing analysis here for Zach. He's an outfielder playing some college ball, so I thought I would help him on some throwing mechanics, velocity-focused mechanics for position players. Now, the big difference here is the 3x approach is strictly a pitching approach, achieving triple extension before front foot strike. Is a power component that involves a full range of motion. So it's building a full stride, or ultimately to building a full stride and building an explosive stride. So we don't do that really from a position perspective, or throwing from a position, because we time is an issue. Pitching, it's not. So we have all the time we really want, except when guys are on base, to take time to build as much power and velocity. So in our positions, time is a factor, a little bit more of a factor. So it's as much as important how quickly we get rid of it, sometimes, to how hard we throw it. So we kind of want to balance between that, though. We want to get a good time of, we want to get rid of the ball as quickly as we can, but we also want to get as much on the ball as we can. So we're trying to kind of pick up the best of both worlds. So really the key to getting rid of the ball quickly, I got some footage here of Ichiro. The key to getting rid of the ball quickly is just making sure you're always moving to the ball with a good amount of speed. That's why you'll see Ichiro, small little fast guy, has a great arm. Not so much because he's a big strong guy. It's really because he's got incredible amounts of speed. I mean, look at the size of his legs. He's not really that big of a guy. So he uses his, he has got a lot of fast twitch muscle fiber. So he uses that speed, and he puts that speed into the ball by getting a lot of momentum going into his throws. So he's moving everywhere. He's not going to field that ball in a static position. He's gonna get it and get going as quickly as he can. So and that increases both. That speed to the ball is going to increase velocity, and it's going to also increase the time it takes for you to get rid of the ball. So that's a major factor that should be dealt with up front, and something you should always try to get better at. But as far as the mechanics of going into it, where the 3x approach can help position players is hip to shoulder separation, and that force vector as well. And I wrote an article for position players using what I call the FVS system. So if I took 3x out of the 3x approach, I would have left what I call the FVS, which is force vector separation. Okay, so we can see here, let's just watch Ichiro. Now, we can see he's got all this speed moving forward. So he feels that ball, he turns hips to shoulders, gets everything closed like a pitcher, and takes a few lateral steps, not many, right here, a little lateral shuffle, but keeps his speed. He's not trying to slow down his speed. But when he's ready, he puts a hard plan into the ground, because that's our force production. That's where we're going to guide and then also launch a little bit more power into our throw. So basically, you're not going to harness that speed into the ball without a good drive leg foot plant and then a front leg foot plant. So that's important. So when you come up, we've got to put that drive leg down, hard, but keep that weight more on the ball of the foot. We want to now let ourselves stride out. We're going to let that speed that we have let us stride out. We're going to, about halfway through a full, a pitching stride, we're going to pretty much put down. But as we're putting down, we're going to start coming off on the back of that foot. You see that? That's the key here, and that's really the speed. So when I talk about foot contact, you want to put that foot down, and you want to begin to stride, keeping your weight on that drive leg. And just before you land, you're going to open your foot, but at the same time, you're going to try to get that foot off the ground as quickly as you can. So that's where you want to increase your foot contact speed. Basically, how quickly can you get that foot off the ground, basically in a drive, So you're taking whatever force from that speed that you just planted into the ground, those ground reaction forces are moving back up. You're going to take about a short stride, open up your front foot, and then just before that front foot lands, you're going to start pushing that drive leg through. And the key is when you land, you want to get that knee going as quickly as you can to your target. So that's that push. You're kind of rolling your knee down and coming hard off with a good ankle kick off that drive leg. The quicker we can get this leg through in that force vector in line, that's going to drive the hips around and create the hip rotation. So you see right before we land, we open our foot. That starts the rotation of the front hip. Before it lands, though, we're going to come hard off the back foot, aligning the force vector at the same time, driving that shin into the ground. And if we can do those two things together, open the front foot just before we land and drive off the back foot with the force vector to our target, driving our knee to our target, that will create that hip rotation. And we got to land stable. We can't break down in the front. We got to stop all that speed and power, and that's going to get our hips through. If we can get our hips through here, so you can see all that weight is moved to his front leg. His hips are completely through, and the shoulders are still closed. So the key is taking that speed, planting it into the ground, and then converting it to hip to shoulder separation by extending and driving your force vector of your drive leg through as your front foot's opening and hitting. We're going to create that hip rotation. So that's probably going to be the hardest thing to learn how to do and implement. So you can see here that Zach has got a similar lateral movement. Of course, he doesn't have the speed. I think, Zach, you're better throwing this way in your cage and coming up into a crow hop or not a crow hop, but coming up into pretty hard off the ground like Ichiro his here before you turn lateral. And then do a little shuffle and then plant hard, which you've done here. Okay, short stride, your foot just opens, but see you're still down. So that's the key here, is just before this front foot lands, you have to be driving your shin down, your knee to the target, your force vector in line, and then your ankle kick through. So you should get here like this, where Ichiro is. See where he is? Force vector to the target, ankle kick through, hips open, shoulders still closed. You should get there and still not have thrown yet. You also don't want to stand up on your drive leg, so you might want to increase your stride a little bit here. So that's where stride length needs to open up, as if you land stiff-legged and then you go to extend and you're throwing standing straight up. So throw your front leg out a little bit farther. I want to finish with knee. You can see here with Ichiro, knee. Ultimately, if you could get your knee behind heel, you'd be in a better position to keep this leg stable and not allow you to stand up and go vertical. We don't ever really want to go vertical in our delivery. So preventing that front leg from extending straight up is going to prevent us from going vertical. And it creates instability. So keeping that knee behind your heel. So that means you got to open your stride up a little bit just to keep that knee behind your heel. But like I said, it's so important to take the speed into your once you turn lateral, into your little lateral shuffle. Plant all that speed into your front foot. Open up a short stride compared to a pitcher. Something almost 50-60% of your height. And you're going to open your foot just before you land. That's going to start your front hip rotation. But you've got to get the back leg driving the force vector through into that front foot strike. That's the key, because that's going to do what Ichiro's done here. You can see he opens that foot just before he lands and drives the back one through at the same time, getting the force vector in line. That creates the hip to shoulder separation. So, that's a big key in the 3X approach, is hip to shoulder separation. So the more hip to shoulder separation you can create, front foot strike like Ichiro has here, the harder you're going to throw. So we can see here, you with Zach, you have created no hip to shoulder separation. By the time your leg is coming through, your hips are opening right here. So look at your hip rotation. See your hips open here, and you're throwing. Look at Ichiro. His hips open here, and he hasn't thrown the ball yet. So you just need, and the key here is moving faster. If the lower half moves faster, and you stabilize harder, and you can convert that to hip rotation by getting your ankle kick and force vector driving through before your front foot lands completely, or as your front foot lands, then we create a separation between hips and shoulders. So we got to speed this up. All right. So unfortunately, you're not in, the 3x pitching velocity program, but I would highly recommend you get the program because it's going to, until I develop a position velocity program for position players, I would recommend you get this program. Because the strength and conditioning program is very critical for you to develop this kind of speed and power that Ichiro is developing, which is going to help speed all this these lower half mechanics up. And it's also going to have a throwing program, that works in a full stride through triple extension, but you will be able to modify it. I'll help you modify it for a position player stride, basically a shorter stride, and force more and focus more on that quick lateral movement, getting that force vector through, and not having to get into like a pitcher triple extension. So it's an easy modification to do, and ultimately the program's going to give you that. It's going to give you the strength and conditioning program. It's going to give you a throwing program that's going to help you get better at these mechanics, increase your velocity. And it's just going to give you something to work with, because right now it obviously looks like you don't have anything to work with, and it really makes a difference in the world when you have a program that gives you something to do every day, working towards implementing these mechanics and getting bigger, stronger, and faster with the strength and conditioning program. But like I said, get that for now, and until I'm hoping by at least next year I'll have a position player program. It's just I'm so overwhelmed with the pitching right now, working on my preseason and season program. But like I said, it's all the same stuff, man. It's just you don't implement the triple extension. It's more of a, you can see here, it's more of a double extension, which would be hip flexor, ankle, not knee, and you just focus more on the force vector as you're coming through. But the same thing, we got to get that hip rotation where our front foot gets down, just like we do with pitching. And the key to it is just coming off, just like with pitching, we focus on just trying to achieve triple extension before we land. But here, we just want to get the ankle kick through and the force vector in line before or as we land. And the same thing's going to happen. We're going to create hip rotation, front foot strike, and create good hip to shoulder separation. So what you need to do, Zach, too, as well, is watch the other analysis on the site for the pitchers and go back to this one, and it'll help you kind of transfer what you're learning with the pitching one back into the position player. So it'll keep you not, learning pitching mechanics, but learning throwing mechanics. So I hope this helps, and keep me up to date on your progress, and wish you the best.